parts of the nation are surging in cases. We're looking at over 19 states that have rolled back their reopening or have paused it. And we're looking at 37 states that have seen an increase or a spike in cases. My question to you would be, what is the medical community's biggest concern right now? And in terms of PPE, hospital beds and ventilators, are there enough in case the situation gets similar to New York City?
Right, so that's a very good question. Our biggest concern right now is that, as these states are surging, like Arizona, Florida, Texas, Georgia, it's very worrisome because then a surge anywhere can spread throughout the country and it will delay us even getting kind of back to normal and back to reopening. The other issue too is running out of those tangible resources like ventilators, beds, protective equipment. And actually, unfortunately, we're already seeing in certain areas, such as in Houston, in Phoenix, in Arizona, and Florida, that doctors are actually reporting a lot of the same issues that we had in New York. So many hospitals have already reached full capacity and have activated emergency orders. And I'm hearing from healthcare workers on the ground that there are unfortunately shortages of PPE in those areas, which again worries all of us because, we were hoping that the other parts of the country would learn from the issues that New York went through and would hopefully be more prepared.
Yes, what is the biggest lesson they should take from New York and how they have handled COVID-19?
Right. So the biggest thing is that, there has to be very strict policies in place, especially by the government. So, there should be masking mandates because we know that if everybody wears a mask, the transmission drops almost 70%. And then on top of that, all non-essential businesses may need to close down again and be as strict as we were in New York. Because once we are able to close things down, reopening should not happen all at once. It needs to go very gradually and in phases. New York was moving now from phase 2 to 3, and just now we got news that likely we won't be moving into phase 3 on Monday. And I think that's the right call because we don't have a spike. We still are having decreasing cases, but it's better to kind of stop reopening and continue to go gradually before there's a large surge. As you can see in other places like Arizona, Florida, California, they're actually going backwards and closing things again. So all of these things are very, very important, and it's up to the leaders to put those policies in place until the healthcare workers can catch up.
Dr. Anthony Fauci has predicted 100,000 cases per day if we do not get a hold of this virus. What is your prediction according to what he has said? And does this mean this pandemic is not getting better, even though in New York we are seeing very low cases right now?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it is very concerning. And to be honest, I think he's right. The latest numbers as of this afternoon is we already have over 2.6 million cases in the US alone and 127,000 deaths, so we're already on that type of trajectory where we could easily have, 100,000 cases a day. And again, it's not without risk. People will die, we'll lose lives. So it is concerning that, we are one big country, so we can't only look at New York. We can't only look at certain regions. If there are surges in other parts of the country, we kind of have to act like that surge is happening everywhere. And that's what Dr. Fauci had said. So I think everyone was so focused on New York that a lot of states may have reopened too quickly. So that's not the right approach. We all have to be careful.
What have been some of the biggest misconceptions about COVID-19? What is the public not doing right according to you?
Right. So I think that there's a lot of misconceptions around masks. For whatever reason, masks have been very much politicized. There's been a lot of concerns about your health in masks. Masks actually are very, very safe. Doctors, nurses, healthcare workers wear them for 10 to 12 hours a day, and it's not dangerous. If anything, it protects you from getting sick. It protects other people from getting sick. So just wearing that is a very cheap, easy, effective way to help buy time and get this pandemic under control. The other misconception, I think people thought that, hot temperatures temperatures would kill the virus. And as we're seeing, some of the hottest areas in the country right now are surging. So Arizona, Texas, Florida, where it's 90 to 100, over 100 degrees in many of these places, we're still seeing a lot of cases and deaths. So, that I think is a big misconception. The other, I think sometimes we're seeing this as a second wave, or the virus went away and came back, but that's not true either. The virus never went away. And in some places, it may be a second wave, but many places are still experiencing their first wave, because flattening the curve doesn't really mean the cases are less. Flat means we're just continuing, we're not going up. What we really want is a decrease or downward slope of the curve before we can really say, okay, we're on to the second wave.
In terms of the young Americans, that's something that has also come up a lot this week as we're looking at COVID-19. There are increasing number of younger COVID-19 cases. All top health officials are urging the community to take it seriously. Your comments on it, and have you seen an increase with the younger population, such as us?
Yes, the young community, we've seen a large amount of cases in that population. And in fact, in some of the areas where these surges are happening, the majority of the cases are young people. So for example, in Florida, in Arizona, the majority of the cases the new ones are being diagnosed between age 25 to 44. And, people had this misconception earlier that only older people get more serious forms of the illness, but that's not the case. We're seeing a lot of young people who are very sick, admitted to the hospital. Over 20%, of these young people are getting very sick and getting admitted. So, that is a big source of the spread. So young people have to take it even more seriously, I would argue, than everybody else.
In terms of looking at reopening, and I would like to eventually go into vaccine trials as well, but just a follow-up question on this. Parts of nation are still open. Restaurants are open for outdoor dining. We have salons that are open. In certain areas, bars are also open. What is your comment on all of these openings? And should we currently be socializing outside right now, according to you?
Right. So, outdoors, the spread is significantly less than indoors. So that's one good thing. But being outdoors is not a fail-proof, especially if you're not social distancing. So seeing things on the news of large crowds of people gathering, not wearing masks, socially and not, and you have to be very, very careful and wear your mask and keep at least 6 to 10 feet of distance from people, even outside. But inside is definitely far worse. And that's why I think New York and New Jersey have decided to wait to reopen indoor dining for that very reason. And, in places like salons, gyms, bars, some of them, social distancing is almost impossible. So if it is a place that isn't able to effectively social distance, I would think twice about going there, because we're seeing a lot of the spread, especially in those southern states, came from establishments like that. And now we're getting word that California, Arizona have actually closed down a lot of their bars. And I believe other places will follow too.
In terms of testing, do you think we are doing enough? And another question for testing right now, which a lot of the audience is asking, if you test negative for coronavirus, are you protected? Or if you have antibodies that are positive for coronavirus, are you protected? Your comments on that?
That's a great question, because there's a lot of misconception with testing. As you said, the coronavirus test for the active disease has actually a 30% false negative rate. So I could have a negative test but still be infected. And we see this even in very sick people. So we have people that were admitted to the hospital in the ICUs that tested negative, but then when we went deeper into their lungs, we found virus, so they definitely had it. So that's one issue with the testing for the active disease. For the antibodies, it's another problem, because one, we don't know what positive antibodies mean. There's so much variability between the tests and the accuracy of the test, but even if I have antibodies, and this goes for any illness, it doesn't necessarily protect you completely. It might partially protect you. It may protect you for a few months. We don't know how long these antibodies last for. So again, I wouldn't release all your cautions. I would still wear masks, continue to social distance, be vigilant, whether or not you've had COVID-19 or not, whether or not you have antibodies or not. We unfortunately have to still be careful because of all of these, differences in the testings.
In terms of trials as well as vaccination, what are some updates you could share with us? I know you're working very closely with the process of the vaccine that we're hoping we would have by January of next year. Remdesivir is also back in news. I would like for you to reflect on both of them.
Right. So, today, you must have heard there was some promising news coming from the Pfizer vaccine, which is, one of the clinical trials that are going on at many academic institutions, including where I'm on faculty. And the good news is from Pfizer, as well as some of the early results that Moderna had released a few weeks ago, is that it is showing that the vaccine is having individuals produce antibodies, and it shows that these antibodies are working. That's key, because antibodies are good, but we want antibodies that actually can fight the virus. So far, the vaccines are showing that both are possibilities. So I think that is very good news. Now, the next step we'll be seeing to make sure that protection and the virus fighting activity can last longer. And now, there's many different medications being studied. I think still we need more information with remdesivir or with steroids. And because the virus is so different and presents so differently in everybody, it may be the case that certain treatments work well for certain groups of people, but they may not for others. So I think, again, these studies and trials are extremely important in us kind of getting ahead of this pandemic.
We have been talking a lot about, community at high risk, and we have a lot of South Asian community that is at high risk with diseases that could be fatal in COVID-19. What is your advice right now, looking at what has been the recent developments with at high risk patients?
Right. So, we know those that are at highest risk are those that have diabetes, obesity, and heart disease. And unfortunately, those three are very prevalent in the South Asian population. Many of those run in my own family, in my friends' families. So it's extremely important for South Asians to take this very seriously. Many have already passed away from COVID-19, some of whom I know personally as friends. So, we as a community, we know that we're already high risk for certain conditions that, again, put us at even greater risk for COVID-19 and serious outcomes from it. So absolutely, the South Asian community needs to be very vigilant.
Do you have any comments on the new virus that is showing the same aspect of the swine flu, if I'm right? Should we be concerned about it right now?
Right. So as of now, it is not in humans, thankfully. But, from what scientists are reporting and the update that Dr. Fauci had given this week to the government, it does have properties that resemble swine flu and that do have potential to infect humans. So, the last thing that we would want is to be dealing with two pandemics at once. And this underscores the need, to continue to practice all those good hand hygiene, social distancing, wearing masks, because if it is something similar to swine flu, that also spreads through upper respiratory means, similar to COVID-19.
What would you say to our elected officials right now?
So what I would say is that, we need to stop playing politics and basically enact policies that work and that we know based on scientific evidence work. So mask mandates are such a cheap and easy way to help decrease transmission rates. So I think political leaders in both parties need to be role models and step up, and so that other Americans will follow. There's a lot of misinformation out there. There's a lot of, misconcerns that, it's a partisan issue. It's not, we know it works from a scientific standpoint. And then the other thing too is it's very, very important to decrease the spread. All the states can't act independently as different countries. They need to kind of act in a uniform way, because an outbreak anywhere is an outbreak everywhere. So we all have to have a uniform way of reopening things, and gradually. and I know people are concerned regarding the economy, but if
Yeah.
anything, Goldman Sachs released a report yesterday that mask wearing not only will save lives, but it will also save the economy as well, because we'll get back to reopening sooner. And hopefully that will buy us enough time to get the vaccine and a reliable cure.
For sure, and I really hope we get that vaccine, and I really appreciate you for your time here on ITV Gold. My one last question to you is, after all of these months, Dr. Parekh, of dealing with patients, being on the front line, and now also being a part of the process of vaccination, what has this pandemic taught you the most, and what do you want people to learn the most from it?
What has taught me the most is that being proactive and being prepared are key. We always say this in medicine for years, but that, a ounce of prevention is a pound of a cure. I probably didn't say it as articulately as the original quote, but just being prepared and acting fast and being proactive can save so much devastation. It can save so many lives. And I think, we need to have policies in place that if another pandemic like this hits, we are ready, because we were kind of caught off guard. We didn't have the testing in time. We didn't have protective equipment in time. There wasn't a concerted effort in closing down businesses and travel. And maybe if we had done all of these things sooner and we had enough of a supply of all the key resources, we may not have had as many deaths or infections. And ironically, we may have been able to come out of this faster as some of our neighbors in other countries. So I think it's being prepared and preventing things is much easier than kind of backtracking.
Well, I appreciate you for your time here, Dr. Parekh. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.